Welcome to the Josh Hall Web Design Show. Helping you build better websites and create a web design business that gives you freedom and a lifestyle you love.
Hello, friends. Welcome into the podcast. This is episode 168. So if you've been listening for a while and if you know my brand, you know that I use WordPress and I highly recommend it. There's a lot of other builders and themes and platforms out there. I do have students that use other platforms than WordPress. However, I use WordPress, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I have also gone on record on this podcast to say that I don't recommend certain platforms like Wix or Squarespace, but my guest in this episode is kind of like the Josh Hall for Squarespace. This is Paige Brunton, who is an awesome gal, really savvy entrepreneurial marketing and web design mind. She is also a web design coach, but again, she's in the Squarespace space. But I'm not going to count that against her. I wanted to bring her on the podcast. We're not actually even talking about that. We're actually talking about marketing strategies and specifically content marketing strategies that fit your personality type. This is crucial. I so enjoyed this conversation. I really felt a kinship with Paige, despite us not being on the same page with WordPress and Squarespace. But it just goes to show you that you can use all sorts of different platforms. And as long as you stick to what works for you and you stick to the strategies and the tools that work for you, you can make it in web design. You can do awesome things. That's exactly what Paige has done. And in this episode, we really talk about how to create a content marketing strategy that is going to be perfect for you. So you can focus on your superpowers. You can focus on what you like to do and get the right clients that are a perfect fit for your type of business. Now, if you're anything like me, when you think about marketing strategies and you think about getting on social media, my first thought back in the day was like, oh gosh, now I got to get a freaking Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube channel. Do I need to do a podcast? All these things that just overwhelm you when you think about doing marketing. But here's the good news. You don't need to do any of that if you don't want to. In fact, if you are going to do marketing and content strategy, you'll hear later on in this interview, Paige recommends that you start with one, and I back that up. You don't have to overwhelm yourself. You can focus on marketing strategies that are perfect for you. We dive into the ins and outs of how to do that in this episode. Again, Paige was awesome. She also has a great resource for you that I highly recommend checking out. It's a quiz that will help you determine which method you should dive into depending on your personality type. You can go to her website at the end of this at paigebrunton.com/quiz. And I'm just going to share with you what she said about it. She said, it's about finding out what client finding method matches your personality type, which is so important because hell, who wants to slog through some marketing strategy they absolutely hate? That's what she emailed me when she talked about this quiz, and it was awesome. I so agree with that. So check that out. Again, paigebrunton.com/quiz at the end of this. And before we dive in, one thing you can do to alleviate having to sell over and over and over and even picking out different marketing strategies is to build recurring income. If you have yet to start building recurring income, the best way to do that is with a maintenance plan. And my revamped and redesigned and version 2.0 of my maintenance plan course is out now. You can join that. Just go to the post for this episode at joshhall.co/168. And there'll be a little offer there to sign up for that course. I would love to help you build recurring income so that you can keep your clients coming back to you over and over and over through your website hosting and maintenance plan. And now in this episode with Paige about how to build content marketing strategies that fit your personality type, it'll be the perfect thing to add along with your recurring income. So without further ado, here's Paige. Let's have some fun. We're going to talk about content marketing strategies that actually fit your personality and get you pumped up. Here we go. Paige, welcome on to the podcast. So great to have you on.
Thank you, Josh. I'm so thrilled to be here.
We were just chatting before we went live. You are, I would call the Squarespace version of myself, which is really cool. I'm really excited to chat with you here for a little while.
Yeah, totally. I'm thrilled about it as well. So interesting to find someone with such a similar business, honestly.
Yeah, it was really cool. When I trying to remember, I think your assistant was doing some sort of poll for web design. And then I just looked at your site and I was like, oh, this gal's I don't know too many web design coaches. And that was you. And I was like, oh, really cool. And what was really interesting, and I think you are the first guest on this podcast that is all about SquareSpace, which I'm a WordPress guy. Most everyone in my circle are WordPress. So I kind of feel like we're, like different cultures meeting for the first time or something, but I'm excited to have a fellow web design coach and a SquareSpace girl on. So I'm super excited to chat with you. Let's start there here, Paige, maybe where you're based out of. And then if you could summarize what you do, let's start there.
Yeah. So I moved 12 days ago now to England. So I'm Canadian. I have lived in Germany for the past 5 years because my husband is German. And just 12 days ago, we moved over to England. It's a little bit easier to run the business here, being an English speaking country. And so anyways, I am based out of London, England right now, which is very thrilling for me to say.
That's very cool. Yeah. And I think I saw on your bio, you had met your husband. Was he like a German exchange student or something? And then you followed him over?
How we met kind of also relates to like why this business started in the first place. So I'll start from the beginning. So
perfect.
I'm Canadian, went down to the US for a master's degree, walked into a bar, did not know anyone in the state of Mississippi, which is where I was. And so I was like, okay, I need friends. Well, I met my 2 roommates and then the 3 of us were like, okay, we need friends. So I went to the bar and walked into this bar and everyone looks like they're wearing like the traditional like Southern outfit. It was like, baseball hat and fisherman's shirt and like boat shoes. And then there was these 2 guys wearing like well-fitted jeans and button downs with really good hair. And I was like, they're not from here.
Something ain't right.
Yeah. And so I walked by and I heard them speaking German and I'd been to Germany before. So I knew what language it was. And I was like, oh, like, interesting. Where are you from? And we started chatting. And anyways, now I'm married to that man. So we met in a bar in college. And once I finished my degree, I moved over to Germany and had studied for 6 years. I had both an undergrad and a master's degree. And when I got to Germany, those things were completely useless. Without speaking German, there was no hope for that.
What were those degrees in?
Yes, it's a very fun degree. You ready? Recreation and leisure. I studied play for 6 years. Yep. Not web design, not business, not marketing. I know. It was a good time for 6 years. I can tell you that. But anyway, so I studied those things, moved over to Germany, no job options. And in my master's degree, I'd started a blog just for fun, just thought it would be something cool to do. And that's how I taught myself how to build a website. At the very beginning, I was Googling like how to build a website because I didn't know how to do that. And I realized there was these website building platforms. So then I was like comparing between WordPress and SquareSpace and Weebly and I don't know, Google Blogger at the time and everything. And I tried them all out on the trials. And then I realized like, okay, SquareSpace is the easiest one for me personally to put what's in my mind onto the page. So that's why I chose that one. And so then I realized once I got to Germany, okay, sweet. I need to work online somehow because my job options here are like working in an Irish pub or whatever. And I was like, that's not really what I
have to ask, this degree of recreation and play, what is that like? How to make an awesome recess? Like I'm trying to imagine how that's applicable in the real world.
Yes.
And
Okay,
I don't mean to demean that. I'm so curious.
Believe me, I've had hate for this for like my whole life. So that's not
I'm sure your grandma was like, Paige, what are you doing going down there?
Yeah, she was. Yep. Okay. Let me explain the job, which I would have done and intended to do. So I worked as a summer camp counselor and supervisor for like 9 years, all through high school and university. And so the woman who managed that, so it was for my local like municipality town, she would manage all of the programming in the town. So like she would make sure that she would, set up programming for the ice rinks and for the swimming lessons. And she would hire all the 200 camp counselors and she would train all those people and basically make sure the facilities were like booked and the, Santa Claus parade was happening and the farmer's market was going. She was like the organization of like fun things in the city for the city. And so that is what you actually, so think of it as like kind of like business administration, but for like fun events is pretty much.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes total sense. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyways,
but not applicable in that season of your life moving there. And that's what's so awesome about web design in general. And it is interesting. Like I said, I'm a WordPress guy. Pretty much everyone I know is into WordPress, but if you felt like SquareSpace worked best for you, that's cool too. Like that's what's so interesting. But there's so many tools. At that point, so started getting into web design. What year was that you really started taking that seriously?
I graduated in 2016 and then I moved over to Germany, spent a few months kind of like, what am I doing with my life? And kind of like doing a few like web design projects on the side for an agency who I'd met randomly. And then I think it was January 2017 that I got serious and was like, okay, I'm going to be a full-time website designer.
Okay.
Don't know how to run a business. Don't know what I'm doing, but like, I'm going to find a way to make this work because otherwise this relationship's ending and I'm going home.
Yeah. Every web designer's story. Everyone has a cool path into it and fumbles into it. And then before you know it, you're running a business, whether you like it or not. So how long did you do that before you started teaching and sharing what you learned?
So the whole first year of the business, I was blogging in order to get clients. And so then it was honestly within it took a few months. Blogging is not like a fast strategy. It takes time to build up. Yeah. And so I was blogging to get clients. It took a few months until I actually started getting clients through the blog. And then I just shot to the top of the Google rankings because I had created way more content on Squarespace than anyone. So the first actual website designer that came up when you Google Squarespace website designer was me, which was leading to an inquiry a day for my services.
Wow. So you became the Squarespace gal.
Pretty much. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so that's when I realized okay, I need to somehow, I don't know, I have an inquiry day. I can't take on all these projects. The thing which was done at the time and which everyone else was doing was becoming a web design agency. But I just knew myself. I was I have zero interest to manage humans. That does not sound like a good time for me. So I was agency doesn't feel like the thing for me. I was maybe I could just take this knowledge of how to make really amazing websites, just put it in a course and then sell it. And that can be sold to however many people want to buy that thing. And so it was in 2018 that I launched the Squarespace web design course, Square Secrets.
Okay. And that's still going strong, right? That's your main course that you sell.
Yeah. So Square Secrets and Square Secrets Business. So once people took Square Secrets, they all started asking me on Q&A calls I can build these amazing websites. I showed it to my friends and family and they're all saying oh my God, so great. Can you build one for me too? I can't believe you created that. And that's when I realized that there was a lot of questions related to how are you building and managing the business and managing projects and doing contracts and keeping things on schedule and collecting content. And so that's when Square Secrets Business was created. So,
and we were talking about this before we went live, but it's so interesting to hear your paralleled experience and interest I have with courses and teaching, because I've always felt in web design, I think I mentioned this to you before we went live, there's kind of three categories. There's learning web design itself, the tech side, design, all that good stuff. There's the business aspect. And then there's marketing and more of the entrepreneurial side of things. And I have a lot of courses on the first two. Now I'm getting into creating courses on for the webpreneur, doing email marketing, video, and then some of the things that actually do more outbound stuff. So that's really interesting. But I think this is great because this right here, Paige, what you're talking about is really laying the foundation of this topic that we're diving into, which is basically sales that suits your personality. You've already hit on a couple of really important points there, which is you knew the typical agency life wasn't for you. Again, I share a kinship with you there because I felt like that too. I had zero interest in running a big digital agency. I had colleagues that did that and they were boasting about their numbers, but I was that just sounds like a nightmare. How many meetings do you have? And some of the stresses that they have with overhead and payroll, I just didn't want to do it. So that is a really important point. And I think it's fascinating that you started out with blogging. Now, we talked a little bit ago too. I can't remember we hit record or not, but you're really pushing your YouTube channel right now, which is awesome because video content along with blog. That's exactly how I built my website and built my online presence. My question for you, and I think this translates to selling based on your personality, how did you know that blogging was a good fit for you? Did you just like writing? Was it how did that come about?
So I had followed all the big people on the internet about running an online business, listened to their podcasts and stuff. And very consistently, or read their blogs, very consistently, everyone was saying blogging was the thing that made my business take off. So I was all right, if they're all saying it, they must know something. I also took B School with Marie Forleo, which talks about content creation and blogging and building an email list. So I knew if everyone's saying this, I'm just going to shut up and listen and go and do what the experts are all saying to do. So I started blogging. The good thing is that I enjoy writing. I can just, sit down, write off a huge post and just throw some thoughts on the page. It comes fairly easily to me. So it fit what I like to do. Also, when it came to podcast or YouTube, felt too overwhelming, too much tech. I didn't have the space to film YouTube videos or something. And it just, it was just too much for me at the beginning. And so blogging, I knew people had said this is successful. It works really well. It builds your Google rank and everything. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm just going to do what people are saying, like works really well. Now, I'm not saying that everyone needs to do that. There are definitely a zillion other ways, which we can chat about, to sell your website services, which is not blogging, but that is the method which I chose and worked really well for me.
Well, the cool thing about blogging is for you, obviously it was huge. And like you said, it wasn't instantaneous. There's always a bit of time when it comes to content marketing in general, even with YouTube videos and podcasting and stuff. But blogging does take a little while. But the trick is, if it's good content that you're passionate about and you're answering questions, it can go such a long way and open up so many doors. Like, to be honest, when I think about what I do now, it really all started from me blogging when I was a web designer. I started blogging on my website, my agency site, and not many people were reading it, but one person read it, who was the content manager for Elegant Themes, which are the creators of Divi. And that's how I got my start as a blog author for them. And that's what subsequently started me being interested in teaching and sharing what I learned. And few years later, here we are. So you just never know. You never know whether it's client acquisition or whether it opens up different opportunities, or if it sparks interest in being a creator or maybe switching up what you're doing. There's so many benefits. And what I like about blogging, I did not anticipate talking too much about blogging on this, but I think this is really important. You have your work out there for the world forever. Like, the problem, I think, sometimes when you're in a creative service, like being a web designer, sometimes you do your work and then maybe it's redesigned in a few years, or maybe for whatever reason, a company goes another way. With a blog, it's like, it's on your site for as long as you want it to be there. It's like a mini book. So I'm kind of curious, did you have any formal training with blogging, or did you do keyword research? Or did you just go for it and just write about what you're interested in?
Yeah. Okay. So again, previous in the undergrad or master's degree, I had started that, like, it was a travel blog. So I had knew what I was doing with blogging roughly. Okay. Like, you should have keywords, you should put them in headings and name your photo, then put it in your URL link and stuff. But to be honest, when it came to actual keyword research, like, I would have it on my to-do list, like, do keyword research. And I was always like, oh, so boring. Like, I know.
I don't like it either. I hate keyword research. I have an awesome partner for that, because I just don't, exactly. I don't love it.
Not my thing. So to be honest, at the very beginning, I was like, people would ask questions. I would maybe search in Pinterest the word SquareSpace and see if a couple other related words came up or something. That was the extent of my keyword research, and literally just that. And also when I came to that's actually funny. I was at a SEO conference in Berlin, and they needed an example in the audience for trying to rank for a keyword. So I was like, oh, Squarespace website designer. And they're like, okay, they searched it. I was the first one. They go to my homepage and they're like, you don't actually have the word Squarespace web designer a single time in your homepage. And I was like, oh yeah, I don't. Whoops. But I was ranking.
But you still came up. Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's I just liked the topic, was interested in the topic, wrote posts about it, didn't really strategize where keywords were in the posts or on the homepage or anything. And just from creating the most useful content on the topic, I became number one in the search results. So
there it is. There's the perfect example of how to go about blogging without overwhelming yourself with data and research. Yeah. And keyword research can be super beneficial for sure, but totally. I did the same thing, Paige. I literally built my brand by just doing mainly Divi tutorials and then eventually more WordPress tutorials. And I didn't do any keyword research. The actual posts that a lot of those tutorials are still on, which rank really high, are in the red with my SEO plugin. I haven't optimized. It's been on my to-do list for 2 years, some of these posts, but it's just not a big of a priority right now for me. But it just goes to show you, if you write good content that answers questions and is made for humans, and if you can just make sure the term is in there a little bit, that's all you need to do. And I will give a quick tip for everyone listening when it comes to keyword research. If you want to do it for free, I teach this in my SEO course, you can use Google. All you have to do is type in, and then you will see related terms. You can go down on the page. You'll see what people also ask. And then you'll also see at the bottom, there is related searches that you'll see at the bottom. There's your free keyword research tip of the day. So that is as easy as it is to start doing content. So I love hearing how that's helped you. Now, to this topic and this idea of selling based off your personality. When did you decide that, okay, now I want to get from behind the screen and show my face and actually, do YouTube videos and more content? When did that come about for you?
Yeah. So that was when we honestly had the capacity to do it and realized that a lot of the things that we wanted to rank for, YouTube videos were showing up for. And it just logically made sense when it came to like, here's how to XYZ in SquareSpace to have that as a video as opposed to a blog post. So that was really key that's when I decided like, okay, it's time. Also, I just we bought a house and then I had a space which I could actually film videos in and everything. So that was when that decision happened. In terms of the figuring out like this kind of idea, which I have of like figuring out which client finding method matches your personality type, that honestly came from teaching my course, Grow Secrets Business, the one about how to build a web design business. And the reason that happened was because I went to go create the course and I had all the like outlines for the modules and everything. And I was like, this is perfect. And then it came to obviously finding clients, marketing your business, very important thing to have in a course on building a business. And I was like, I don't feel great about this because I don't want to teach on strategies, which I don't personally didn't do
yes.
But I do know that there's other options. And I don't want to say blogging is the only way because I realize some people hate blogging. Yeah. So what I did was I just messaged a bunch of people who I knew in Squarespace world. I was like, hey, wondering if you would help me by like coming and doing a 30-minute video and like guest expert inside my course and just talk about whatever marketing strategy like you like and you enjoy. Perfect. So I had all these different, I think there's 8 of them. Ladies who came in and they talked about like in-person networking, pitching by email or DMs, Facebook groups, partnerships, Instagram, giveaways, podcast interviews, Pinterest, blogging, YouTube, and email lists. And so there's like this whole variety of like, here is a whole bunch of marketing strategies that are working for us, that's booking out our businesses. You can then decide like which one actually feels like something I wouldn't hate, because I feel like that's the issue is so many people, especially with Instagram, they're like, I feel like I have to do Instagram. Everyone is on Instagram. Maybe it's more of a female issue. I don't know.
No, I just started my Instagram a few months ago. And I was like, all right, I didn't have an Instagram for years. And I was like, I'll finally do. And I'm actually really enjoying it. But I'm basically like the old guy trying to figure it out. I'm like, what is a story and a reel? I don't get it. But yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to derail you. No, I totally feel you there.
Yeah. So especially with my students, everyone feels like, everyone's on Instagram. It's the thing. I have to do it. And it's like, if you hate Instagram, and I personally I am not on Instagram. I've sold millions of dollars of things on the internet without being on Instagram. So I just wanted to show you, like, it is so possible.
You may be the only female entrepreneur influencer that's not on Instagram that I know. Okay. Or that's what it seems like, at least.
This is interesting. Okay. So that is also something which I thought. So I joined a mastermind with ladies who are at like a similar level in business to me. And when I went to their Instagrams, most of them are not really active on Instagram, except for the 2 women who literally teach about Instagram. But otherwise, most of them are not really on Instagram, or they have small followings on Instagram, like they're under 10,000 followers, which in the Instagram world is very small. And so I was actually really surprised to see that with women who are really like doing well in business, like a lot of them actually aren't, because that is the thing which we all think. We just assume if you're big in business, you're big on Instagram, but it doesn't actually have to be the case if that's not what you want it to be.
That's a great point. And it does kind of make it a little more reassuring, I think, for everybody, because it's like, you don't have to be anywhere. You can choose what your lane is. Like, I have really found a lane in podcasting, which is my favorite. I had started with YouTube and built that up. And right now in 2022, my big goal is to really take that more seriously and be more consistent and get back to posting more tutorials and things like that to keep my YouTube strong, because it is a really important source for me. But that's pretty much it. Like, I am on socials, but what I do is I have my Facebook and my Insta connected. That way I just go through my business account, my Facebook business, and then it kicks out to both. What's interesting though, is I have found Instagram to be much more of a welcoming and nicer place than Facebook. Are you on Facebook at all or no?
No, not on Facebook.
So where are you, and maybe some of your other entrepreneur friends, where are you guys online?
Email lists and content that ranks in Google. Okay, so that's me personally.
What about any sort of social networking? Any social networking for you, or is it
none?
Kind of back.
I don't have Instagram on my phone. Not personally, not business wise. I don't use it because I'm the type of person where I go on Instagram and then I've noticed like I feel badly about myself, and it's like, what is wrong? Like, I have an amazing life. Like, why am I possibly feeling crappily about myself when I go on this app and see other, like, this is not good and I don't enjoy this. And so the one thing which I think is hella useful with Instagram though, is it's just a realistic place to have conversations with people, or like, it's just a useful place. Like, there was one of my past team members, she went off and started her own business. Saw she redid her website. I was like, oh my God, it looks amazing. It was kind of weird. I thought it was like, oh, I should tell her, like, it looks so good. Good job. And I was like, well, I'm not going to send an email with that. So I was like, okay. So I went on Instagram on my like desktop, and I was like, just sent her a message and DMs, and Instagram cool. was like, looks so good. Good job. And yeah, so I think it's the place where like communication is happening. So I see it valuable in that sense for me personally, but otherwise, like, I'm not posting anything, haven't for a long time, and don't want to either.
That's awesome. I love that. I think a lot of people, more so now that we've kind of had a good decade plus of social media, and it didn't take long for a lot of us to just get burned out on it. And I think everyone over the past couple of years has more realize what's behind social media, with just the exhaustion that it can create and the polarization, which is typically found on Facebook. Like for me, I run a Facebook group for Divi web designers, which is 24,000 people. So I'm not there that much, but it still is a hub for a lot of the Divi community. So I still try to stay active there, but Instagram has been more of just connecting with students on a deeper level. In some ways, I found that to be the case. So yeah, like I think I have 300 some followers on Insta, but they're meaningful and they're really engaged, which is cool, but it's not a huge part of my business. For me, and then this goes back to like doing what works for you and what your personality is suited for. For me, podcasts and YouTube, those are my two main channels. And for you, this is what's really interesting about you, Paige. It is email marketing and blogs and content creation. Now that's set, like, if you tell the average younger entrepreneur now, do email marketing and post blogs, they'll be like, okay, are you from like 2002? Because does that even work now? And heck, yes, it absolutely, like, you are a prime case study of that old school, quote unquote, strategy working, because it totally does. It totally works. I think it's really important not to neglect those.
Totally. I totally agree. And like, again, when I look at all of my friends in business who are really successful, they all have email lists. They're all creating content that builds their email list. Like, that is just a strategy which has been working for a really long time, and is really like not depending on algorithms or ad price changing or all these different things. So
yeah.
And while I do, sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
Well, I do personally, I'm like not a fan of Instagram. I can say that like we've looked and we've surveyed our students and stuff for like, what are they getting the most web design clients from? That was actually the thing which we had sent you. So we're surveying, like we're trying to survey hundreds and thousands of website designers to figure out like what is working for them in their business, in terms of like getting clients and their project size and how long they've been doing this and all these things. And so one of the most consistent places that they are finding clients, web designers, is Instagram. So while I'm like, I don't want to be on Instagram, I'm not saying that it's wrong. And I'm not saying that doesn't work, because it does. It's just, if you hate it, you're not going to show up on it. You're not going to enjoy it. It's going to be a chore. You're going to procrastinate. Whereas if you're like, I love posting my life on Instagram, then like, sick, you are meant to be on Instagram. You can tell, like, there's this one girl who I follow, or who I, every now and again, I'm like, oh, I go check on her now and again. And like, this girl loves Instagram, and you can see it. And she is just like lit up when she is on Instagram and sharing things and making her reels and whatever. And so I feel like if you get true joy from that, amazing. Like, it's a great marketing strategy if that's what you want.
No, I totally agree. I love that. And I think it's really important, because you can tell when somebody's forcefully doing it just because they feel like they should, or somebody advised them to. And with Instagram, it's often, maybe this is a TikTok thing, I don't know, I've never even logged on TikTok, but you see a lot of like the point videos where it's like you point here and there's a little quote that pops up. And I, like, part of me was like, should I do that? And I stopped myself immediately, and I was like, that is so not me. And I would feel weird, and I'm just not interested, and I'd much rather put my energy in. Like, I'd much rather, for anybody watching, you did the perfect, like, check it out, which again, not against those. Maybe they work great for some people, but I would like, it would so come through that I felt awkward and it felt forced. I don't have any interest in that. So, but it's a really good point. Like, sell and think about marketing strategies that suit what you feel comfortable with and your personality. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to get more comfortable doing something. Like, I was a little worried and a little scared about doing tutorials on YouTube, because they started picking up traction. I wasn't great on camera years ago. But as I got more comfortable with it, I got better at it and I learned to enjoy it even more and more. So I think there's that aspect too. What do you have any tips on kind of deciding what platforms and what areas of marketing to maybe try out and how you might get better at those?
Yeah. So we could talk about the different like options and everything. So I can tell you like the easy way to figure this out is you go to paigebrunton.com/quiz. There is a quiz, which you can tick the, answer a few questions. It'll shoot out like, this is the marketing strategy that most aligns with like your personality type. Okay. And so that's kind of like the easy, fast version. But generally, I think people fall into the categories of like people who enjoy creating content, people who enjoy leading communities. That could be like a Facebook group or some sort of actual like in-person community or network or whatever. Then there's people who really love social media, people who love speaking, public speaking. That could be like speaking on stages. That could be guesting on podcasts. And then there's people who are just like, I just want to pitch. Like, I just want to send DM or email pitches and then find like people that way. So those are the ones which it like generally falls into. And if you take the quiz, then you'll figure out which one of those you are. And it gives a bunch of recommendations on how to like implement that strategy. Okay. But that's kind of the ways which like the different kind of categories or buckets of marketing strategies, which I think of. So yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. When you were describing those 4 categories, I felt like I was in 3 out of 4. I have zero interest in pitching myself. Even when I was starting in web design, I hated doing that. I hated selling. I hated reaching out to people.
So for example, if it gives you that gut feeling, not for you.
Yes. And I think most web designers that I talk to feel that. Like, I don't want to be that sleazy salesman, but that's the beauty about what is open to us nowadays is we don't need to do that because of technology. And this is where like blogging and building your content and your authority, this is where this comes into play. And the big thing I've learned with any selling, no matter what avenue it's in, is if you just teach and share and serve, that's your sales. I literally, because I've had people ask me like, dude, you give all of your stuff away for free. Do you feel weird about that? I'm like, listen, a course is, as you know, Paige, way different than a free tutorial. Like those are breadcrumbs. The full thing is the course. Like we save our either best material or the point A to point B, start to finish stuff for the courses. But there's all these little tips and tricks and strategies that we're happy to share. And I think web designers in general should have this with their clients. Like, don't be afraid to teach your clients or your leads and your network about whatever you learn. That's the sales tool. You don't need to ask for business when you share what you know.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons which I love content creation. Like, yeah, it's true that only like, I don't know, a percentage of the people who read my blog or watch my videos will ever pay me for anything. And you know what? That's totally fine. Like, if I can give some free, useful information to the world, that's amazing. Happy to do it. Still results in me like having a profitable business. So happy to, I don't know, it just feels like, again, like non-sleazy, helpful, useful information. If you decide that's what happened. Because people would always ask me, like students, they'd be like, oh, well, like if I share for free in a blog, like how to XYZ on your website, like why would anyone hire me? And I'm like, because people, what happened at the very beginning, I had this blog post on comparing all the different SquareSpace templates. People would go to that and it was like, okay, if this, then this, and if that, then that, choose this one, or this is good for that, and that's good for that. And then people would look at it, or they'd look at some like beginner tutorials and they'd be like, oh, screw it, this girl knows what she's doing. Like, I'll just hire her. And so like, not everyone who reads the blog thought that, but enough people did that it led to an inquiry a day and I couldn't keep up with it. So like, it works beautifully in my opinion.
And that goes back to what you were talking about earlier with your initial content creation in that blog. It's like, when you do that, maybe you don't know where it's going to go initially, but years later, you look back and then suddenly your potential clients see you as an expert because you've written a ton of material about this. Mm-hmm. And even if it's just like 10 blog posts over the span of a year or something, that looks amazing on a website. I'll tell you right now, for anyone who's like considering doing any sort of blogging or videos, you may feel like, I don't know where this is going to go. Is it going to be worth it? I think I, in full confidence, and I think you'd probably back me up in this page, say that it will be worth it in some regard, whether it is a direct sale or whether it's indirect or whether it opens up opportunities. I don't know anybody who is like, man, I really regret creating really good content for all that time. I don't know if I've ever met. Anyway, it's the people who just feel like it's not going to go anywhere and then neglect it. And then it becomes a regret. It really is amazing. And then again, it's authority, it's trust. It's the content really creates that like nothing else. So I love that. I think that's awesome.
That's how you become an expert on the internet. Is like, I was not an expert at Squarespace website design when I started. I literally, course didn't exist at the time, so I couldn't even take one. But I was just like figuring things out and Googling stuff and redesigning my blog 57 times. And then was like, okay, I can start doing this for clients, and would just post things on the internet. And then suddenly I became the internet's expert at Squarespace website design. And that just resulted purely from the blog content.
And for the average web designer who might want to do a little bit of content marketing, or webpreneur that's going to do some internet marketing or some content strategy stuff, you don't need to compete with the whole internet. You just have to be the best in your sphere of clients. Like I had a guest recently on the podcast who said that, and it really lit the light bulb for me on that idea. Like, if somebody writes something about what they learn with web design, you don't have to compete with myself or you, Paige. You just have to look awesome for your clients. So if your clients see your website and you've written, again, 10 blog posts about Google Analytics and top 3 tips for conversions or good content strategies, again, you don't have to compete with us. You just have to look awesome for your clients, and then you land the clients. So I think that's awesome. It's really freeing nowadays. Now, I want to go back to these buckets of categories of type of marketing. Is this based off, are you a fan of DISC, personality testing?
Oh, no, I haven't. I don't know it. I've heard of it, but I don't know it.
Okay. Well, the reason I asked is because DISC is DISC, which is the kind of 4 buckets of typical personalities, which basically there's a lot of different acronyms for those. The way I learned it and understood it is that D is for more dominant style people, personality types. I is for fairly interactive. S is for more like stable, loyal, content. And then C's, they are the cautious people. They're the accountants. They're the lawyers. They're the people who read every word and are a little like, oh, I don't know if we should do that. And it doesn't mean that anyone is better than the other. It's just you generally, everyone has you're in one of those categories pretty high, and then you might have some other traits in the other ones. The reason I think that's really interesting with sales and marketing is because I learned when I went through a DISC program, which I thought was total, crap in the beginning. I was like, come on. I was like, I guarantee this isn't going to peg me. And when I did a full DISC report, it nailed me. Because basically the test I took was like a bunch of scenarios. Basically like, what would you do in this scenario? And how would you handle this kind of situation? I went through it, and it could not have nailed me more to a T. I realized that I am a high I, very interactive. I enjoy talking, which is why podcast, it shed a lot of light on why I like doing podcasts and interviews and stuff. And then I was a high S. I tend to, like, once I do something, I do it. I don't quit. And I'm very loyal and secure to whatever I'm into. I'm not a, wishy-washy, dabbler kind of guy. Flaky. Yeah. Not my style. I'm only dominant when I'm reacting to something, which is kind of interesting. Like I don't out of the gate speak in dominant phrases and terms. I am like the far polar opposite from a C. I don't want to look at my numbers. I don't want to look at the books. I am not a bean counter. I hate following an SOP, a checklist. But it's funny because my wife is actually the pure opposite of me. She loves a checklist. She's the detailed gal, and she has more kind of dominant traits initially. And then we kind of complement each other in a lot of ways. So it's really interesting. Same thing with business. And the reason I asked about that is because when it comes to sales and marketing, if you know yourself, and you don't need to go through a DISC test, but if you just know, this is what this is kind of who I am, and this is what I like doing, that can help with sales. I think those high Ds, those are the ones who are like the salesmen and the sales gals. They want to do the DMs. They want to do the pitches. They're not afraid to put themselves out there first. Whereas me, I just want to talk about stuff and share what I know and help. And then it kind of makes sense. So based off that, what do you think, Paige? What do you think you would be based off those 4?
Also definitely like the committed person. Once I get into something, I decided, I was like, I am blogging twice a week, and that's what I'm doing. And come hell or high water, I am doing it. And so I've literally blogged twice a week with let's say a 97% perfection, actually hitting those, that posting schedule for 5 years.
Well, I can back you out. When I looked at your website, when it said blog, I was thinking maybe there's a dozen blogs. And I was like, oh shit, there's
600 or
something. It kept on going. I was like, goodness, Paige, this is wild.
Geez, you've written a lot of stuff. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, she's no joke.
7 books in that blog.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. D, I don't know if I'm so dominant. I don't know. What was I again? Interactive.
I would be like interactive. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm starting up. I had a podcast, stopped it for a little while, and decided we were going to go a different direction with like YouTube, and it would make more sense. But I'm actually starting back up the podcast, and that is again, like the interactive. That's one thing which I really loved about it, was like, I could have guests on and I could just chat with people. And I really super enjoyed that. It's definitely the interactive, and maybe a little bit of being counter type. Like I'm definitely like looking at things and I don't know, checking that everything's okay or whatever. So
yeah. And some people, I again, what I found and what I went through when I learned through that training was some people, most everyone has all of that in them. It's just you have higher levels of each one of those. So yeah, how this translates to sales is it's like, if you are a highly interactive person, even if you're shy, even because you can be introverted, but still be very interactive.
Yeah.
Networking groups and in person may still be great for you. And if you're a high D, then there's more like intentional sales that might be really good for you. You might be really good at the pitches and different avenues for actually, selling. If you're a high C and you're very numbered focused, then your approach can be more about the numbers, and it can be a little more logical instead of just saying like, this new website's going to make you feel like this. This new website will get you X and X. Like I actually, I interviewed someone recently on my podcast who was all about conversions. Guess what personality type I could tell they were? A high C. It was all about numbers. It was like, with this service, we'll help boost your conversions by X and X percentage. So it is really cool that can sue. And I'm not encouraging everyone to go get a DISC test, although I found it fascinating. But based off of what we talked about, I think everyone can probably, be self-aware about who you are and where do you fit in those buckets? And then we can choose some marketing strategies from there.
Yes. I feel like the thing is that I really want to encourage people is there is a marketing strategy that you will actually enjoy, which you will not hate, and which you could, and if you're currently doing something and it is feeling like the most awful thing in the world to you, then perfect. Don't feel like you have to force yourself to continue to do that. Like truly there's something else for you. You can go find another marketing strategy that you don't hate implementing, and you're going to be so much more successful when you truly do find something that actually fits you. So again, I blogged, other people hate writing. Totally no problem. You don't need a blog to build a booked out web design business. There's a bunch of other options. So it's just about assessing like, okay, what are the options? And also honestly picking like one marketing strategy, maybe 2 marketing strategies, but not 10 marketing strategies. So that's also does not.
That was a question I was going to ask you is like how many, and maybe this is relative to the situation, how much time you have, but I kind of want to like, how many marketing strategies are good to have? You
only need one. Like if you can nail one marketing strategy, that's all you need. So like when I started, I was just blogging, and then I would get those people on my email list, and that was my whole marketing strategy. And I just literally did that for like years. And that was my only thing that I did. And when I talked to when I had these women as guest experts inside of my course, and I was like, hey, okay, you're booked out like 6 months in advance. Like, what are you doing to book out you and sometimes even your whole agency with clients? And they were all explaining their different marketing strategies. And so the thing to know is everything works. So yeah.
That's great.
No,
I was just asking like how many marketing channels should we have? Because that's, go ahead.
So all those women, they had like 1, maybe 2 marketing strategies that were booking out themselves. So like when it came to them coming into the course, it was like, what's your favorite marketing strategy? Sweet, this one. And then they would talk on that topic. And so they didn't need 10 marketing strategies. They just needed 1 or 2.
And that's, I think, the big problem that a lot of people face when they think about content. It's like, oh no, okay, I'm going to start this thing. I need to be on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, now TikTok. Should probably be on Pinterest. Got to have a podcast. What's that?
Clubhouse.
Oh, Clubhouse. Is that even a thing now? Isn't that
I don't
gone?
know.
I think it's gone.
I'm not sure.
Gone.
I'm not on it.
I never even signed in. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's on the way out. I'll keep you posted.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I'll talk with some kids these days and see what's hot. But I think Clubhouse is already on the way out. But the point is, it can be so overwhelming to do all this. I totally agree. Stick with one. But here's the really exciting thing. You can always add on more as you get comfortable with one. Like I started with joshhall.co. Well, I guess I kind of had 3, but I had already been blogging for a while. So I felt good about blogging. I had started doing tutorial videos, and then I used email marketing, but they were all basically kind of lumped in with one. Like I would do it. I would do a Divi tutorial. I would write a short blog post that accompanied it. And then I would send it out to my email list. And that was it. It was all, it was like kind of 3 in 1. But once I built my YouTube channel, I knew I wanted to do a podcast eventually. I waited though, until I had the bandwidth for it. And this is a biggie. There's often never a perfect time to start something, but there are really bad times to start things. And I realized like, I would love to do a podcast, but I was like, I can barely keep up with doing tutorials. There's no way I'm going to be able to do this. So once I got good with YouTube and had a schedule for that and could bust those out pretty quick, then I had it on my podcast. Now, the only thing I do within my podcast, I want to ask you about your team, by the way. I have 2 people who help me with my podcast. I have my awesome VA Cam, who does the outlines, descriptions. He does the emails now for the podcast. I don't touch those. My awesome editor, Nathan. After this, I'm going to upload this to Google Drive, send the notes out, and then they're going to take it from there. He's going to, do all the files and stuff. So you can automate and delegate eventually for some of your strategies as well to free up, what you want to do. All that to say, you can always start with one and then add more in as you like. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But I feel like the key is like, sometimes people, it's like, I'm going to like add all the things, and then they don't get good at one, and then they have like no traction in any area. And that's the problem. So like, decide the one thing, go all in until you get traction. And then it's like, okay, now again, as you said, like I have the capacity, I have the team, I can I'm not always just getting the thing out on time or late on posting stuff. And then, like, okay, if I'm doing this fairly consistently and it's like not a big problem, then sweet, I could add something else on.
And one thing I was just thinking about too, I know we're really talking a lot about content strategy, so I might need to relabel this episode, but it's really valuable when it comes to marketing based off your personality, how you want to put yourself out there online. Is I've learned that certain content works better for certain places. Like podcasts is the time to take your time, go really in depth, have a good chat, have a good interview. YouTube is often best for, which I do post these interviews on YouTube, and they get about probably a third of the downloads that I get off the podcast apps. But YouTube is great for like tutorials and maybe a 10-minute video kind of thing. And then what I'm finding with like Instagram is I'm starting to use that as just more like personal kind of stuff. Like this weekend, my wife and I were at a hockey game, and I had thought about this recently. I was like, you know what? I have this Instagram now, and I'm going to use that to just get a little more personal. I have 2 daughters, so I'm a little leery about getting like too share. I'm not going to be the influencer that shares my whole life every day, but it was a good chance. And I just posted like weekends or weekdays are for work, weekends are for hockey games. And it was really cool. It was one of my most engaged posts. So I'm kind of learning that too.
Who played?
So I'm in Columbus, Ohio. So I'm a Blue Jackets guy.
Jackets? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So where were you in Canada again?
I'm from Toronto. So I'm Toronto Maple Leafs.
Okay. So you're all the Leafs. All right.
I have literally not won. And I think my dad, he said he was like 11 the last time they won. 60 something now.
As far as the cup. Yeah. As far as the Stanley Cup. Yeah. So, well, it's kind of interesting. It's funny. I just love hockey people. I knew I liked you, Paige. There's something about like the hockey people that just are so cool. Hockey fans are awesome. So we were at that game, but going back to like the idea of like what to share and what kind of content works best is I'm experimenting with this too. I know you're doing it as well. You found what works for you. And I'm just kind of learning like, this like little peek into my life is a nice way to break up the typical content or sales or whatever. And just like, here's what's going on. It adds a little more personality to it. So
I can definitely tell when I was on Instagram like years ago and was actually posting things now and again, the things which did get the most engagement were the more personal items. Like, we bought a house, look at this. And like, here's, I don't know what's happening, or I'm going home to Canada for the summer or whatever. And like, those were the things that would get the most engagement. And so I feel like different platforms kind of suit, different items or types of content best. And so,
And I think nowadays it's more and more acceptable just to share a little bit about who you are. Like the fact that I am open about liking hockey and I like Star Wars and I play tennis every once in a while when I can. I was a drummer. Like when I talk about this stuff, it just adds another level of trust because I have a lot of students who are like, I'm also a drummer or, one of my closest students right now, he is an actual NHL photographer. So he's out in Colorado with the Avs taking photos all the time. So it's really cool. Like when you put yourself out there, it adds another level of not intimacy, but I guess transparency with your clients, which
Yeah, because we're just like faces on the internet to people. And then anytime I get on a Zoom call with say a student one-to-one, they're like, oh my God, she's talking back. Like she exists. She's a real human. Or like if I've done meetups in the past too, and they always say that, something along those lines. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm like a real person. And I feel like, when you add those like personal aspects, then it stops you from being like face on the internet that kind of doesn't really feel like a real human and makes you into a real human. So
and that worked really well for me when I was just a web designer getting clients too. I always made it a point to be professional, but I would never steer clear of what I was up to or what was going on, if I was getting married or we were having our first kid or, whatever it was. It was, or if I would just got back from a Jackets game that week. I mean, I wouldn't say like I'm hungover and it was an awesome game, but I would say, I was at the Jackets game last night. So, there's a lot of value nowadays with, being real and being authentic, keeping your professionality, sure. But it's really cool. I think it's really exciting, particularly when it comes to content marketing and social media. I have two questions real quick I want to ask about your team because you've been saying we, and I'm curious about who we is. I also wanted to ask about what other, what you guys found out in your research with other platforms, but let's start out with the team. So who is we? What's behind we?
Okay. So there's currently 5 of us. So that is myself. And then we have our customer service girl, Amy. Then we have a tech VA, Vicky. Then we have an online business manager, Chandra. And then we have our content girl, who is Dean. She's been with me the longest. She actually started off as like just customer service and tech VA. Actually, she was like the both of them together. And then there was one point a couple of years ago, SquareSpace released a whole new version of their platform. So I had to go fully re-record a course, literally. And then we were about to launch it. And I was like, I have to do this.
Oh, no.
It was a nightmare.
You know what? You're not alone. That's happened to a lot. So one of my good buddies, are you familiar with Zapier, which is like a tool where you can connect? So he did a Zapier course and they changed the whole back end like a week or two before he was going to launch. He was like, dude, I didn't have that happen to a course, but I did a Google Analytics video, which was still my most popular video. And they changed the back end of Google Analytics like 2 weeks after I launched it. I was like, are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah, exactly. When launches or like new things roll out, most people are like, oh my God, yay, new features. And I'm like, no.
I got to re-record something. Yeah.
But anyway, so coming back to what Dean does. So she was my customer service tech VA. And then I was like, I need to record this entire course. And like, we're always ahead on our content schedule. I was like, then we're going into a launch. I was like, I need help with blog content. Like, here's some ideas. Can you like, I don't know, whip up some posts? And she was like, yeah, totally. And she like wrote some posts and I was like, oh, those are pretty good actually. And so she basically slowly but surely became the person who like, she's like, we think about the ideas together and then she's going ahead and she's actually like outlining and fleshing out and like writing the posts often. And then even also like helping with like YouTube scripts or like when we're going to start the podcast, she'll be like pitching guests and all those sorts of things. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I was kind of curious. Whenever anyone says we with any sort of personal brand or an agency, I'm always curious, like, is that like 2 people or is that like 20? Which again, being that you didn't want to have the agency route, I didn't figure it was a massive thing, which is another cool thing about now, just a small team.
Yeah, even to this day, still, I'm just like, I love my team and I love them as people, but I'm just like, God, I just want freedom. Like, I don't want meetings. Like we literally have meetings like once a quarter or something. Like we don't have meetings.
Not often. There's no reason if you don't like, there's no reason to have a weekly meeting if you don't need it. Like same thing with with the folks who helped me with the podcast. We did one like catch up call at the end of the year in 2021. Mm-hmm. Maybe we might do another catch-up call at the end of 2022. I don't plan on, unless they have ideas, which they're open to send me. Like, we really don't need to have a team chat necessarily. And I mean, I do try to keep, connection and spark alive and all that. But and
I'm down to do a team retreat. That sounds fun.
Oh yeah.
But like just meetings in general, I think this comes from my frustration of meetings specifically came from one job. So when I first got to Germany, there was like, there was some bilingual kindergarten that needed like an English speaker. So I was like, all right, I'll show up and like talk English to some 5-year-olds. Fine. Because I didn't know what I was doing with my life yet. And so this kindergarten would have meetings with all the staff. And then they would be like, they would vote on everything. And it was like such a democracy. And it was like for the Christmas, should we put the Christmas lights inside or outside? Vote. And I'm like, why am I here? Why can't someone just decide this?
What a waste of time.
So annoying. And again, it was in German. I just got to Germany. So I didn't really understand what was happening. I was like, why am I here? You are paying me to sit here and I'm hating every moment of this. And this is completely useless. Someone just decide where to put the Christmas lights and call this a day. My Lord. So yeah, I was like, no meetings. Unless there's a reason, we're not having a meeting. We can have a time set for meetings so that we don't have to organize the time every time. But we're only having a meeting if someone's like, oh, I need to talk about this thing, not because there's just a meeting on the calendar.
Yeah, that's the beauty about entrepreneurship now is this break from the corporate world meeting cancer that has spread. This is why a lot of people hate. I mean, I don't know anyone who came from the corporate world who was like, yeah, we had awesome meetings all the time. No, everyone hates meetings, especially if they're useless. So now, you guys did this poll about marketing strategies and stuff. What else did you guys find out? Because I know a lot of people and a lot of my students have talked about LinkedIn. And I think this gets back to so we talked a lot about content strategy. We kind of know who our clients are. So for the average web designer, you have to ask yourself, where are my clients going to be? Where are they hanging out? Did you guys find out some of that in your research?
Yeah. So the interesting thing is we're still doing the survey. I've taken little peeks into the data and everything, but we haven't come up with, we're going to write a whole in-depth blog post, which is going to define all the keys that are really the most successful web designers all have these things in common and everything, but we're still actually doing the survey. So it's not done yet. So if anyone who's listening to this is a website designer, you can go to paigebrunton.com/survey, and we would love for you to complete the survey. And then we will also send out our full results and takeaways from the survey at the end. We're going to be releasing that, I think, within a month or so. So yeah, I'm sorry, I don't actually have all these super interesting insights. I've just taken peeks of the data, but we haven't.
That's all right. And I was just looking because I think we're recording this in mid-January. I think this one will probably be out in about a month from recording date. So probably about mid February or so. So maybe that'll be done by then. But I was just kind of curious, even so far, what you guys have seen, just because it's fascinating. And again, this may also depend on if somebody listening has a niche somewhere. If you're appealing to just, if you're working with female entrepreneurs, coaches, then they may be on Instagram. If you're working a product-based type of e-commerce store, then maybe Pinterest is a really good way to go. If you're, for me, a lot of my businesses and clients were local businesses and small businesses. So I did a lot of in-person stuff. I loved going to my networking group and going to meetups and stuff actually in, face-to-face. Although now, we live in a Zoom world, which there's still a lot of opportunities for that with Zoom as well. So I think it's a really important point when you think about your content strategy. Where are the people you want to, for them to buy your stuff? Where are they hanging out? That's probably a good point. Yeah.
Yep.
Did you ever think about that? I mean, obviously you were writing stuff for SquareSpace, but when you were getting clients, did you ever think about that? Or because I would imagine you were attracting some DIYers, right? As a web designer?
Yeah, definitely attracted some DIYers from the fact that I was posting free blog posts on here's how to XYZ, whatever. I did also try to think about okay, if what are blog posts that would lead someone to want to actually book a service provider? And so it's okay, that's things to look out for, red flags when you're hiring a website designer, or average pricing of websites when you're working with a website designer versus I don't know,
great point,
a template or something. Yeah. So I think through what are the questions that they would be asking to then write blog posts that would truly be targeting not just the DIY, but also the person who is actually looking to hire someone.
That is a really important point, particularly for web designers who want to do content, because what I've seen a lot of my students do, and I did this a little bit when I started blogging, is they write content about stuff they know, but then they end up attracting other web designers or DIYers who are not going to spend a dime with them. So you do have to be very intentional. If you're going to talk about web design related stuff, make it what clients would be interested in, top tips for SEO or conversions, or, if you're going to talk about tech, 5 tips for a WordPress web designer you're going to look for, or a SquareSpace in your example. That is really, really important because you got to be careful about who you're going to attract.
Yeah. And that's true because, I definitely did a lot of kind of behind the scenes business things and I don't know, my processes or what I was doing or whatever. And then I attracted a lot of website designers, which I was not expecting. And I would just go through my email marketing. I would like just look at the emails that were coming in, and I would see like the @whatever.com. I would just go see what @whatever.com was. And I was like, geez Louise, there's so many website designers. And then we do an annual survey in my business to figure out like who's following and what are their problems and all those things. And then at some point just ask like, are you a website designer? Or are you this? Like the number of website designers, I was like, my Lord, like I didn't intend to attract these people, but I did. So
you did. Yeah.
What you write content about, like there's a lot of things within the like tech tutorials or running a web design business or whatever, where you could attract different types of people based on exactly what your content is about. So again, thinking about who is the person who I want to work with? What are the questions that they have? What are their current hangups or situations? And trying to write a post for that.
And even going a step further with that, I found it to be really, really important, particularly with like the first heading on your website or a description of what your business is about, to put your ideal target clients in there as well. When I was a web designer, I specifically said small to medium-sized businesses. So that attracted a lot of small and medium-sized businesses, which were perfect. I did not want to work with a big enterprise client. Speaking of meetings, like, oh my God. And I worked with a couple like big nonprofits, and same thing. I remember having to do like a Zoom call, and I'm like, why am I here? I should literally not be here. I think one of them I said I had to go. I just got the heck out of there because it wouldn't even talk about website. They were talking about like internal stuff. I'm like, I should not be listening to this. I should not be here. So there's some of that, but also the other side of that are like startups or people who have a solo business who, maybe I'll work with them, but established business is ideal for where I'm at, when I created that verbiage. And then what's interesting about that is when I launched my podcast, I wrote that because the intro is how to build a web design business that helps give you freedom and a lifestyle you love. And I was very intentional about those two words, freedom and a lifestyle you love. Now, does that mean you're a parent? Does that mean you're single and want to travel and have more freedom? It doesn't matter. Freedom and a lifestyle you love works for everybody. And the reason I say that is a lot of people who have come in my courses and my coaching community, which is my web design club, have said that like I was working in a job and I wanted to have more freedom, or I became a parent and now I don't want to commute and I want to be able to stay at home and work hours that allows me to see my kids. So that was really big for me too. So that all the content and all the sales strategies that I do lead back to this. And it's very clear about that messaging. I don't want to take us too far on messaging, but it is really important with content.
So important. Like I was just looking, researching like a podcast topic that I wanted to be podcasting on. And I was looking through and I was like, awesome. There's literally nothing that would hit the vibe of the person who I want to be working with, because these are all like, this is just not, I don't know, just looking at even the covers, I was like, no, my people wouldn't listen to that, wouldn't listen to that, wouldn't listen to that. Like, it just doesn't look like the thing that they would be interested in.
Until you found the Josh Hall Web Design Show and they were like, there's my competition.
Exactly. But yeah, and so it's just truly like people also, the interesting thing, I have attracted a lot of people who have moved abroad to be with their husband or boyfriend or something, which is like, obviously my story is resonating with someone there. And
look, what a conversation. We're like tying every little tangent we've had into this idea of selling, but that's based off your personality. Cause like with you just getting a little more personal about your story. Like when I looked at your about page before this talk, I was like, oh, that's really cool. That's a cool story. Like every web designer has a cool story. Share that. Don't be afraid to share that with your clients.
I agree. And so at the very beginning, I was definitely nervous about the fact that I was like, oh, I'm in Europe. Like I'm really far off from the time zone that like all the American Canadian clients that I would be working with are in. Like I kind of actually thought like, oh, maybe I should hide that. And when it came to brand photos, I was like, no, it needs to be like American looking or whatever. And then now the most recent brand photo shoot, I was like, hell no, I'm going like full into this Europe thing. Like I took photos in a place that like, it was actually in Germany, but it looked like Paris. But anyways, but yeah, so I've really like leaned into the like, okay, this is my story. This is my life. Like, and the right people just get attracted. And I've also attracted a lot of moms who just had babies and were like, my job does not work for me, which is unexpected because I don't have kids. So anyway,
so I got a quote for you, Paige, that I think you may have heard it already, but it definitely encapsulates what you're talking about. Yeah. And that is, your vibe attracts your tribe. So you know it. Yeah, you nodded your head. That when I heard that, it really made sense for what I've experienced, which it's kind of interesting because at first my audience was primarily dudes, but I actually, and I was looking recently at my analytics and stuff, and it's actually like 60-40 now. I've got a lot more female entrepreneurs. But I mean, I try particularly for like my podcast to get a good balance. But it is interesting, like the way you present yourself, your messaging, because I think the idea of freedom in a lifestyle you love, in my case, appeals to stay-at-home moms too, for sure.
Totally.
I have a ton of gals in my web design club who are in that position, or they're like you said, leaving the corporate world. They want to travel while they're in that season of life. Like I don't know. It's awesome. Yeah. I think it's really cool.
Honestly, when I think about also the thing which I'm going for, I talk about like having a job that works like with your work-life balance dreams, not against them. Same idea, freedom, lifestyle that you actually enjoy, like having a job which works with your life, that sort of thing. So yeah, same idea really.
And it all goes back to content and selling, how you feel comfortable selling. Yeah. But again, I want to bring this up again, because I think this is really important, because I know a lot of my students are terrified to go to like a networking group, but I will say, so was I. I neglected going to a networking group for months, and then I finally did it. And yeah, I was nervous. The first time I got up and had to do my little like 30-second elevator pitch, I was shaking. I was nervous. Despite me being really interactive, I was terrible in a group, like terrible. I was great one-on-one. I'd go to a coffee shop with a client, have a blast of a chat. I could talk to a few people, show them stuff. But as soon as there were like 5 or 10 sets of eyes on me, I was like, oh, deer in the headlights kind of look. But I got more comfortable and I got better at it. And then next thing I know, I was leading the group. So it's really important too, to have a look. You got to branch out of your shell, but definitely know what you're interested in. I think you've talked about this a lot. If you dread doing something as a marketing strategy, don't do it. Or just change how you do it. Like with Instagram, I to be honest, just a few months ago, I was like, I don't even feel like posting anything to Instagram, but I wasn't posting stuff about what, now I'm kind of using it as more of a bit of a more personal avenue for my brand. And now I really like it. I love that about that. So
yeah, that's really good. That's great.
Yeah. Well, Paige, this has been awesome. It's been a quick hour. I feel like we could definitely go into this for a lot longer, but I think we've really talked a lot about content strategy and doing the right types of content for our personality. We talked a little bit about self-awareness and DISC, which I know you haven't exactly gone through, but it sounds like, I would imagine some of the trainings you've been through have been different versions of that, maybe with just whatever personality types, we have. I do have a final question for you, but before we get to that, where would you like my audience to go? You've got obviously shocker, a lot of blog posts they could check out. I don't know if too many of my audience are going to be interested in SquareSpace specific stuff. So is there a resource for like maybe business or marketing or some good website? Where'd you like to go?
So on the blog, there's a good actual mix of like Squarespace related posts, and then also just like managing and running a web design business and how a lot of our students are like implementing these different strategies to be very successful. So there's still definitely information if you want like web designer in general, not Squarespace specific. Definitely pagebrunton.com/blog has literally hundreds of things that could help you. And then also if you're interested to figure out like which client finding method matches like me the best, then you can also go to pagebrunton.com/quiz. And that's where you can find all out about, you can tick the boxes. It'll tell you like, bam, this fits you perfectly.
Yeah, we'll definitely link both of those and have the quiz in there. I think it's a great resource. I'm kind of curious myself, even though I feel pretty self-aware about where I'm at, what I'm doing, but I'm fascinated by that. My last question for you here, Paige, is how has your content strategy and the way you view sales changed in your experience?
Ooh.
And that may have been 2 in 1. So maybe a better question would be, how has your view of sales in particular in marketing changed?
Okay. How's my view of sales changed over time? I see it more now. At the beginning, I definitely felt like this sleazy, like, I'm pitching and like, this is uncomfortable and I don't want to pressure anyone into buying anything from me or whatever. And now I see it as like, this is an invitation. This thing is sick. I mean, you should probably only be selling things that you think are genuinely amazing. And so I sell things which I think are amazing. And then I'm just like, yeah, this is awesome. This is like changed these many people's lives. Clearly it works. So like,
also sick may not be the best terminology nowadays. So yeah, but I got you. Something awesome. Yeah. Something like that.
Something awesome. Yeah. And so, yeah, here's this like, it's open. You can come get it. If this feels like the right thing for you, if this feels like what you're called to get, then awesome. I would love to have you basically. And so I really see sales now as like, I have this amazing offer. You could take it, you could leave it, like whatever you choose, totally fine by me. But like, yeah, go ahead.
That's well said. Beautiful. Gosh, what a blast. This was really fun, Paige. I really enjoyed this chat with you. Thanks for taking some time. I know you recently moved, so I'm sure you got a lot of unpacking and plenty to do. So I don't want to keep you too much longer, but yeah, this is really cool. Thanks so much for sharing your expertise and your journey. Again, you're my first SquareSpace colleague. So that's really cool. So super excited about, also really excited about your podcast. I can't wait for you to get going on that.
Yeah, I'm thrilled about it too. I'm excited to release it soon. So yeah, but thank you so much.
What's that going to be called? What's that going to be called?
I'm probably changing the name. So it was the Online Business Besties podcast. Again, very much the vibe attracts your tribe with that name right there. But anyways, I think we're actually going to be changing the name because it's going to be a slightly different focus. So I will, if you just search Paige Brunton in the podcast app, you can probably find me.
Cool. Yeah. Anyway, if you ever want to pick my brain, count me in for an interview because I would love to come on and chat again.
Yes, definitely. For sure. Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Paige. Talk soon.
Thank you. You as well.
Hey guys and gals, just wanted to pop in with a couple things before you head out. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to this podcast. I would love to hear your feedback, and it will also help other web designers find the show. Be sure to check out the show notes for this episode. Just go to joshhall.co, click on podcasts, and search this episode number, and you'll find all the links, descriptions, and resources we talked about. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, and you'll be notified when the next episode is live. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.